Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Force ship Liberty, staring at the empty screen in front of him. For 3 days now, the screen had shown nothing but static where New Eden's signal should be. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked again, hoping to see something different. The static remained. "Still nothing, sir," said Lieutenant Amy Chun from her position at the communications desk. Her voice was quiet and worried. She had been trying to reach New Eden every hour for the past 72 hours. Each attempt brought the same result: silence. New Eden was not just any human colony. It was the crown jewel of human space, home to over 2 million people. What made it special was its children. 800,000 children lived on New Eden, making it the largest concentration of human youth in the galaxy. The planet hosted the most advanced schools and universities that humanity had ever built. Children from every human world came to study there. Jake had visited New Eden many times. He remembered the sound of children laughing in the streets, their voices echoing through the crystal towers that reached toward the sky. The planet was always alive with the energy of young minds learning and growing. It was a place of hope and dreams. When did the signal cut out exactly? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Amy checked her records again. Tuesday at 13:47 hours, sir. They were broadcasting the children's choir performance, the one they do every month for all the human colonies to watch. Jake closed his eyes. He could picture it. Hundreds of children on stage, their voices joined in harmony, singing songs of Earth and home for families scattered across the stars. The broadcast always drew millions of viewers from every human world. Parents would gather their own children to watch and listen. "What was the last thing we heard?" Jake asked. "The children were singing Walking Home, sir." The transmission cut out right in the middle of the second verse. Just ... stopped, like someone threw a switch. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez entered the command center, her face grim. She was a woman who had seen many battles, many difficult situations. But Jake had never seen her look this worried. She walked straight to Jake's station. "Still no contact?" she asked. "Nothing, Admiral." Complete silence. Lisa nodded slowly. "I've been talking with Earth Command. They're as confused as we are. New Eden has the most advanced communication systems in human space. Even if every transmitter on the planet failed at once, the orbital stations should still be broadcasting." "What about the defense grid?" Jake asked. New Eden was protected by a ring of powerful defense stations that orbited the planet. Each station was equipped with long-range communications. Silent, all of them. Lisa's voice was flat. 17 defense stations, 43 orbital platforms, 6 spaceports. And the planet itself. All quiet. Jake felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. New Eden was not just any planet. It was protected by treaties with every major power in the galaxy, including the Zentari Empire. The Zentari had specifically agreed that New Eden was neutral territory, off limits to any military action. In return, humanity had agreed to limit their expansion into certain sectors of space. Could it be a solar storm? Amy suggested. Something natural that knocked out all communications? Lisa shook her head. The other planets in that system are still broadcasting normally. Whatever happened was specific to New Eden. Jake looked at the star chart displayed on the main screen. New Eden was a green dot in a sea of blue, marking human territory in a galaxy dominated by other powers. It was far from any conflict zone, far from any known dangers. The planet had been chosen, specifically because it was safe. "Admiral," Jake said carefully, "what are your orders?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with concern. "We're going to New Eden. I want to know what happened to our people. And I want to know what happened to our children. The Liberty was not alone in space." 3. Other Earth Defense Force ships joined them as they prepared to jump to New Eden. The fleet was small but powerful, designed for exploration and protection rather than war. Jake hoped they would not need their weapons. "All ships report ready for jump," Amy announced. "Take us to New Eden," Jake ordered. The jump through hyperspace took 6 hours. During the journey, Jake found himself thinking about his own childhood. He had never been to New Eden as a student, but he had friends who had. They always talked about it with wonder. The great libraries filled with knowledge from across human space. The laboratories where young minds learned to unlock the secrets of science. The parks where children from different worlds played together. New Eden represented everything humanity hoped to become. It was proof that humans could build something beautiful and peaceful in a galaxy that often seemed hostile to such dreams. The planet was a symbol of human achievement and human values. When the fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Eden system, Jake immediately knew something was terribly wrong. The space around the planet should have been busy with traffic. Cargo ships bringing supplies, passenger vessels carrying students and families, defense patrols maintaining security. Instead, there was nothing. "Scanning for ships," Amy reported. "I'm not picking up any active vessels in the system." "What about the defense stations?" "They're there, sir, but they're not responding to our signals. No power signatures, no life signs." Jake felt his heart starting to race. "Take us closer to the planet." As the Liberty moved toward New Eden, the main screen showed what had once been one of humanity's greatest achievements. The planet looked wrong. Where there should have been the bright lights of cities, there was only darkness. Where there should have been the gleam of orbital stations, there were only dark shapes drifting in space. "Amy, run a full scan of the planet's surface." The minutes stretched like hours as the ship's sensors swept across New Eden. Finally, Amy turned to face Jake, her face pale. "Sir, I'm reading massive heat damage across all major population centers. The cities, they look like they've been glassed." "Glassed?" Jake could barely speak the word. "Yes, sir. Extreme heat applied from orbit. The sand has been turned to glass across huge areas. And sir, ... I'm not detecting any life signs. Not anywhere on the planet." Admiral Rodriguez moved to stand beside Jake. "Take us into orbit. I want a full survey." As the Liberty descended toward New Eden, the true scope of the disaster became clear. The beautiful crystal cities that had once sparkled in the sunlight were gone, replaced by smooth sheets of green glass. The great schools and universities were melted ruins. The parks where children had played were frozen gardens of glass. "Admiral," Amy said, her voice shaking, "I'm picking up a structure in the main city. It wasn't there before. It's big." The main screen focused on what had once been the planet's capital city. In the center, where the Grand Academy had stood, there was now a massive crystal spire reaching toward the sky. It was clearly artificial, clearly new, and clearly not human in design. "Take us down," Lisa ordered. "I want to see that structure up close." The landing party consisted of Jake, Lisa, and 6 Marines in full protective gear. They took a shuttle down to the surface, landing near the crystal spire. As they stepped onto what had once been New Eden soil, Jake could see that the ground beneath their feet was smooth glass, still warm to the touch. The spire towered above them, easily 200 meters tall and carved from a single piece of dark crystal. As they approached, Jake could see that the surface was covered in writing. Not human writing. The script was angular and sharp, unmistakably Zentari. "Can you read it?" Lisa asked. Jake nodded grimly. All Earth Defense Force officers learned to read the major galactic languages. As he translated the words carved into the crystal, he felt his blood turn to ice. It says, "A lesson in compliance." And below that ... Admiral, there are names. Hundreds of thousands of names. Lisa stepped closer to the spire. What kind of names? Jake's voice broke as he read. Children's. Names, Admiral. Human children's names. 800,000 of them. Captain Jake Morrison knelt beside the crystal spire, his hands shaking as he read name after name carved into the dark surface. Each name was small and precise, etched with care that made the horror even worse. These were not random marks. Someone had taken time to list every single child who had died on New Eden. Sarah Kim, age 7, Jake read aloud. Bobby Martinez, age 9. Lisa Wang, age 6. His voice cracked. Admiral, they're all here. Every child who lived on this planet. Admiral. Lisa Rodriguez stood silent, her face like stone. She had commanded ships in battle, had seen soldiers die, had made the hard choices that came with military leadership. But this was different. This was something beyond war, beyond any conflict she had ever known. Keep reading, she said quietly. Doctor. Kate Williams arrived with the second shuttle, bringing a full medical and investigation team. She was the fleet's chief medical officer, a woman who had spent her career healing and saving lives. As she stepped onto the glass surface of what had once been New Eden's capital, she could barely believe what she was seeing. The entire city has been melted, she said, kneeling to examine the glass beneath their feet. The heat required to do this, it would have been instantaneous for anyone caught outside. What about underground? Jake asked. The Academy had extensive underground facilities. Shelters, storage areas, emergency bunkers. Kate nodded. We'll check everything. If there are any survivors, any recordings, any evidence of what happened here, we'll find it. The investigation team spread out across the ruined city. What they found in the first few hours painted a picture of systematic destruction that went far beyond simple military attack. The Zentari had not just destroyed New Eden. They had taken their time. Lieutenant Amy Chun worked with a team of technicians to recover data from buried servers and communication systems. Most of the equipment had been destroyed, but some deep storage units had survived the heat. When they finally managed to access the first set of recordings, what they found made everyone stop working. Admiral, Amy called out, her voice tight with emotion. You need to see this. The team gathered around a portable display screen as Amy played the recovered footage. The recording showed the interior of the Grand Academy 3 days before the communication blackout. Hundreds of children sat in an auditorium, their faces bright with excitement as they prepared for their monthly broadcast to the human colonies. The children looked so normal, so happy. They wore the blue and white uniforms of the Academy, their hair neat, their smiles wide. Some waved at the cameras, knowing their parents on distant worlds would be watching. Others whispered to friends sitting nearby. This is the last normal footage we have, Amy explained. After this, everything changes. She switched to the next recording. The same auditorium, but now Zentari soldiers stood along the walls. The children sat in perfect silence, their faces pale with fear. At the front of the room, a tall Zentari officer in elaborate armor addressed the camera. I am Commander Vextar of the Zentari Imperial Guard, the alien said in perfect English. I speak now to all humans watching across your colonies. Your children are safe for now, but safety requires compliance. Your species has forgotten its place in the Galactic Order. The recording showed Commander Vextar walking among the seated children. His movements were slow and deliberate, designed to increase fear. Some of the younger children were crying silently, trying not to make any sound that might draw attention. Your children will be our guests for the next 3 days, Vextar continued. During this time, we will conduct an educational program. They will learn about proper respect for their superiors. And you will learn what happens when inferior species attempt to rise above their station. Jake felt sick as he watched. Turn it off. No, Admiral Rodriguez said firmly. We need to see everything. We need to know exactly what they did. Amy switched to recordings from the second day. The children had been moved to the main plaza of the city, the same spot where the crystal spire now stood. They sat in neat rows on the ground, still wearing their academy uniforms. But now many of the clothes were torn and dirty. Commander Vextar stood before them with a group of Zentari officers. Behind the children, every adult on New Eden had been forced to watch. Parents, teachers, maintenance workers, security guards. Everyone who had not been killed in the initial attack was made to witness what came next. Education requires examples, Vextar announced to the cameras that broadcast his words across human space. Your species will learn through the suffering of those you claim to value most. What followed was the most systematic cruelty any of them had ever seen. The Zentari did not simply kill the children. They made it into a lesson, a demonstration of power that was meant to break human spirit completely. The children were called forward in alphabetical order. One by one, they walked to the center of the plaza where Zentari soldiers waited. The cameras captured everything, broadcasting each death to human colonies across the galaxy. So that parents could watch their own children die, Dr. Williams had to leave the viewing area twice to be sick. Even the hardened Marines who had seen combat could barely watch. But Admiral Rodriguez stood through it all, her face growing colder with each passing minute. They took 3 days to kill 800,000 children, she said when the recordings finally ended. 3 days. They could have done it in minutes, but they stretched it out. They wanted us to suffer as much as possible. Jake wiped tears from his eyes. The parents, they had to watch their own children. Yes, Rodriguez replied, and that was the point. This wasn't about military strategy or territorial conquest. This was about breaking us, about making us so afraid, so traumatized, that we would never dare to challenge Zentari authority again. Dr. Williams returned with more findings from her medical examination of the site. I've been analyzing the heat patterns from the orbital bombardment, she said. The timing is very specific. They killed all the children first, over 3 days. Then they glassed the planet on the 4th day. They wanted to make sure the adults witnessed everything before they died. Any survivors at all? Jake asked. None. The orbital bombardment was thorough. Every bunker, every shelter, every possible hiding place was targeted. They made sure no one lived to tell the story, except through the recordings they wanted us to find. Amy Chun had been working on communication logs and made another disturbing discovery. Admiral, I've found the broadcast schedules. The Zentari didn't just record what they did. They transmitted it live to every human colony. They made sure parents across human space watched their children die in real time. The full scope of the psychological warfare became clear. This had not been a random act of violence. It had been carefully planned torture, designed to inflict maximum emotional damage on the entire human species. The Zentari had studied human psychology and had crafted their attack to cause the deepest possible trauma. They know how much we love our children, Rodriguez said quietly. They know that's our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. So, they attacked us where it would hurt the most. Jake looked back at the crystal spire with its hundreds of thousands of names. Why leave the monument? Why not just destroy everything and leave no trace? Because they want us to remember, Rodriguez answered. They want every human who comes here to see what happened. They want us to be afraid. They want us to know that if we step out of line again, this will happen to more of our children. Dr. Williams made one final discovery that changed everything. While examining Zentari equipment left behind at the site, she found biological samples, traces of Zentari blood, and tissue from minor injuries during the massacre. "I want to analyze these samples," she told the Admiral. "I want to understand our enemy better, know what we're dealing with." "Do it," Rodriguez ordered. "Learn everything you can about them. Because this isn't over." As the investigation team prepared to leave New Eden, Jake took one last look at the crystal spire. 800,000 names carved in stone, representing 800,000 young lives, ended for no reason except cruelty and power. "We'll be back," he whispered to the monument. "And when we come back, we'll bring justice." Admiral Rodriguez stood beside him. "No, Captain. When we come back, we'll bring something much more final than justice. We'll bring an ending." Dr. Kate Williams worked alone in her laboratory aboard the Liberty, her eyes focused on the microscope display showing Zentari blood cells. She had been studying the samples for 18 hours straight, surviving on coffee and determination. What she found made her hands shake with excitement and fear. "The cells are dying," she whispered to herself. "Even in perfect conditions, they're dying." She ran the analysis again, then again. The results were always the same. Zentari biology was fundamentally unstable. Their cells broke down rapidly without constant chemical support. They were not the perfect master race they pretended to be. They were a dying species, desperately consuming other worlds to survive. Kate called Admiral Rodriguez immediately. "Admiral, you need to see this." The Zentari aren't what they appear to be. Rodriguez arrived in the lab within minutes, followed by Captain Morrison and Lieutenant Shun. Kate showed them the microscope images and her analysis data. "Their cellular structure is falling apart," Kate explained. "Look at these samples. Even with artificial life support, the cells are degrading. They need constant medical treatment just to stay alive. That's why they consume so many worlds. They're not expanding out of greed. They're expanding out of desperation." Jake stared at the data displays. "You're saying the most powerful empire in the galaxy is actually dying? Not just dying. Already dead, technically. They're keeping themselves alive through advanced medicine and by stealing biological resources from other species. Every world they conquer gives them more time, more materials to extend their lives." Admiral Rodriguez studied the information carefully. "How long do they have? Without constant treatment? Maybe weeks. With unlimited resources from conquered worlds? They could probably survive for centuries. But they're living on borrowed time." This discovery changed everything. The Zentari Empire was not an unstoppable force of nature. It was a desperate species, fighting against its own extinction. That made them dangerous in a different way, but also vulnerable. "I need to contact Earth Command immediately," Rodriguez said. "This information could change how we respond to what happened at New Eden." While the Admiral made her calls to Earth, Kate continued her research. She had another idea, one that made her stomach turn, but seemed necessary given what the Zentari had done to human children. If Zentari biology was unstable, maybe that instability could be used against them. She began designing what she privately called the Answer, a biological weapon specifically designed to attack Zentari cellular structure. It would accelerate their natural degradation, turning their own dying biology against them. The weapon would be invisible, spreading through air and water, and it would be absolutely fatal to Zentari physiology. Captain Morrison found her working late that night. "Kate, you need to sleep. You've been working for 24 hours straight." "I can't sleep, Jake. Every time I close my eyes, I see those children. 800,000 children murdered for no reason except to hurt us." She looked up from her work. "I think I can make them pay." Jake sat down beside her. "What are you working on?" Kate showed him her preliminary designs for the biological weapon. It's based on their cellular instability. This compound would spread through their systems and cause total biological collapse. They would die slowly, painfully, the way they made our children die. Kate, that's genocide, she finished. I know what it is, but look at what they did to us. Look at those recordings. They didn't just kill our children. They tortured them. They made them suffer. They made their parents watch. Her voice broke. Maybe it's time they learned what suffering feels like. Meanwhile, back on Earth, President Helen Martinez faced the impossible task of telling the human population what had happened at New Eden. The recordings from the planet had been classified, too horrible for public release, but the basic facts could not be hidden. She stood before the global assembly, her face grave. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies. 3 days ago, we lost contact with New Eden. Yesterday, our investigation fleet discovered that every person on that world has been killed. All 2 million colonists, including 800,000 children, were murdered by the Centauri Empire. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Protests erupted on every human world. Parents pulled their children from schools and held them close. Some colonies declared independence from Earth government, claiming they needed to make their own deals with the Centauri for protection. Others demanded immediate war against the Empire. General Paul Thompson, Earth's chief military strategist, met with President Martinez privately after the announcement. His report was sobering. Madam President, a direct military response would be suicide. The Centauri Empire controls 40,000 worlds. Their military outnumbers are 10,000 to 1. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. If we declare war on them, they'll wipe out humanity within months. So we do nothing? Martinez asked. We let them murder our children and we just accept it? I didn't say we do nothing. I said a direct military response would fail. But Dr. Williams has shared some interesting information with me. If the Centauri are as biologically vulnerable as she believes, we might have other options. The president studied the military analysis. The numbers were clear. In a conventional war, humanity would lose quickly and completely. But if Kate's biological weapon worked, the war would be over before it started. How long would it take to produce enough of this weapon to affect their entire empire? If we convert every medical facility, every pharmaceutical plant, every research lab on every human world to producing this compound, maybe 6 months. But Madam President, once we use this weapon, there's no going back. It will kill every Centauri in the galaxy. Martinez was quiet for a long time. General, show me the recordings from New Eden again. Thompson hesitated. Madam President, I don't think. Show me. They watched the footage of Commander Vextar explaining his educational program. They watched children being called forward one by one. They watched 3 days of systematic torture designed to break human spirit. They had 800,000 chances to show mercy, Martinez said when the recordings ended. 800,000 opportunities to choose differently. They chose this. Back on the Liberty, Dr. Kate Williams made another discovery. While searching through New Eden's databases, she found something the Centauri had missed. The children had been working on a secret project called Starlight Network, a quantum communication system that connected young people across human space. The system was hidden in New Eden's planetary core, designed to look like natural mineral formations. It had survived the orbital bombardment and was still active, still connected to similar systems on other human worlds. Amy, look at this, Kate called to Lieutenant Chun. The children built their own communication network. It's been running for months, maybe years. Amy examined the technical specifications. This is incredible. They were sharing information, coordinating research, even playing games across interstellar distances. It's more advanced than our military communications. And they were using it to study alien species, Kate added. Look at these files. They have detailed biological and behavioral analysis of dozens of species, including the Centauri. The children were better intelligence gatherers than our professional spies. The Starlight Network contained everything the children had learned about the galaxy around them. They had observed, recorded, and analyzed with a natural curiosity that adults often lost. Their data on Centauri weaknesses was more complete than anything in Earth's military files. President Martinez received all this information and made a decision that would shock the galaxy. Instead of preparing for war in secret, she chose to make a public announcement that would give their enemies warning. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, she broadcast across human space. The Centauri Empire has committed an act of such cruelty that it cannot be answered with normal diplomacy or conventional warfare. They have chosen to murder our children to send us a message. We will now send them a message in return. The President's next words were broadcast not just to human space, but to every world in the galaxy, including Centauri territory. Attention all species in Centauri space. The Centauri Empire has murdered 800,000 human children in cold blood. We give you this warning not as a threat, but as the kindness our children were not shown. You have 30 standard days to evacuate all Centauri worlds and stations. What follows is not war. It is extinction. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity, the species many considered weak and primitive, calmly announced its intention to destroy the most powerful empire in known space. General Thompson questioned the wisdom of giving warning. Madam President, why alert them? Why give them time to prepare? Martinez looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. Because we're not monsters, General. We're not like them. Our children taught us to be better than our enemies, even when our enemies refused to be better than beasts. The 30-day countdown began, and humanity prepared for something the galaxy had never seen before. Commander Vextar stood in his private chambers aboard the Centauri flagship Dominion, watching the human broadcast for the 10th time. The words of President Martinez echoed through the ship's communication system as other Centauri officers gathered. To hear humanity's declaration, what follows is not war. It is extinction. Vextar laughed, a harsh sound that showed his pointed teeth. Extinction? These primitive creatures think they can threaten the Centauri Empire? We have ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. We have crushed 100 species that thought themselves our equals. High Admiral Kexron entered the chamber, his ancient face showing concern. Commander, perhaps we should take this threat seriously. The humans seem different than before. Different how? Vextar asked. They are the same weak species we taught a lesson on New Eden. Did you see how easily their children died? How they cried and begged. If the adults are anything like their offspring, they will break just as easily. But Kexron had lived longer than most Centauri, surviving through careful observation and wisdom. I have studied the human response to our educational program. There was no panic, no chaos, no desperate attempts at negotiation. They simply calculated, like they were solving a mathematical problem. Vextar dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. Mathematics will not save them from superior firepower. Order the Third Fleet to Earth. We will finish what we started at New Eden. Meanwhile, across human space, something unprecedented was happening. Every human colony, every space station, every research facility had transformed overnight into a single unified production system. The biological weapon that Dr. Kate Williams had designed was being manufactured on a scale never before seen in human history. On Mars, the terraforming equipment had been converted to produce chemical compounds. On Europa, the ice mining stations now refined biological agents. On Alpha Centauri, the university laboratories worked around the clock, creating delivery systems. Every human in the galaxy was part of the same effort, working toward the same. Gold Dot Captain Jake Morrison stood in the factory complex that had once been New Tokyo's civilian spaceport. Thousands of workers moved with quiet efficiency, assembling devices that looked like simple atmospheric processors. Each device contained enough of Dr. Williams' biological weapon to sterilize an entire planet of Zentari life. "How many are we producing?" Jake asked the facility director. 43,000 units per day, the director replied. "We'll have enough to cover every Zentari world, station, and ship by day 28. Jake was amazed by the scale of the operation. "How did we organize all this so quickly?" "The Children's Network," the director explained. The Starlight network they built wasn't just for communication. It contained detailed industrial analysis, resource mapping, logistics planning. Those kids had been preparing for something like this without even knowing it. Dr. Kate Williams worked in a secure laboratory beneath the surface of Luna, refining her biological weapon with the help of data from the Children's Network. The young minds that had been murdered on New Eden had left behind detailed studies of Zentari biology that made her work much easier. They documented everything, she told Lieutenant Amy Chun, who had been assigned to help with the technical aspects. Blood samples from diplomatic meetings, behavioral observations, even analysis of Zentari waste products. The children were natural scientists. Amy looked at the data files scrolling across the laboratory screens. They knew the Zentari were dying, didn't they? The children figured it out before our best military intelligence. More than that, they had already started working on countermeasures. Look at this file. Kate opened a document labeled Project Guardian, written by a 12-year-old, named Billy Santos from New Eden. This child had designed a biological defense system against Zentari cellular manipulation. He was trying to protect other species from Zentari conquest. The file showed detailed plans for exactly the kind of weapon Kate had been developing, written in the careful handwriting of a child who would never grow up to see his ideas used. President Martinez received daily reports on the production effort. 25 days into the countdown, humanity had produced enough biological weapon to eliminate every Zentari in the galaxy 3 times over. The efficiency was terrifying, even to those who had ordered it. "General Thompson," she asked during one of their briefings, "are we becoming monsters?" Thompson considered the question carefully. "Madam President, monsters kill for pleasure, for power, for personal gain. We're killing to prevent future atrocities. The Zentari have made it clear they will continue to murder our children until we submit completely. We're simply ensuring they never get another chance. And if we're wrong, if there are innocent Zentari who had nothing to do with New Eden, then they should have spoken up when their military was torturing children. Silence in the face of evil is complicity." On day 28, something unexpected happened. Ships began evacuating Zentari space. Not human ships, but vessels belonging to dozens of other species that had been enslaved or dominated by the Empire. The Vorthik, the Kellans, the Sindari, species that had suffered under Zentari rule for centuries, were finally fleeing. The message was clear. Other species believed humanity would follow through on their promise. The reputation humans had built for keeping their word, even when that word was a threat of extinction, was being taken seriously across the galaxy. Commander Vextar watched the evacuation reports with growing unease. Why are they leaving? The humans have no power to threaten us. High Admiral Kexron studied the intelligence reports more carefully. "Commander, our agents report that every human facility in the galaxy has been converted to weapons production. Every single human being is working on the same project. They have transformed their entire civilization into a weapon aimed at us." Impossible. No species could coordinate that kind of effort. The Children's Communication Network The one we failed to discover on New Eden. It's still active, connecting every human world. They're not working as separate colonies anymore. They're working as one unified entity with a single purpose. For the first time since the New Eden massacre, Vextar felt a flicker of uncertainty. What kind of weapon could they possibly produce that would threaten us? The answer came on day 29, when Zentari intelligence finally captured one of the human delivery devices. Analysis showed it contained a biological agent specifically designed to target Zentari's cellular structure. The weapon would spread through air and water, invisible and unstoppable, causing total biological collapse within days. They're going to poison us, Kexron said quietly. All of us, every Zentari in the galaxy. Vextar stared at the analysis report. This is impossible. How do they know our biological weaknesses? The children. The ones we killed were studying us, learning our vulnerabilities. We murdered our own best intelligence source and gave them the information they needed to destroy us. On day 30, humanity was ready. 40,000 worlds, 17,000 space stations, and 6,000 starships were targeted. Every location with Zentari presence had been mapped and assigned a delivery system. The biological weapon would deploy simultaneously across the entire galaxy. Timed to the second, President Martinez stood in the Situation Room on Earth, surrounded by military commanders and scientists. A countdown clock showed less than 1 hour remaining. Last chance to change course, Madam President, General Thompson said. Once we start this, there's no stopping it. Every Zentari in the galaxy will be dead within a week. Martinez looked at the memorial wall that had been installed. In the Situation Room, 800,000 photographs of the children killed on New Eden covered the entire surface, their young faces smiling at a future they would never see. Commander Vextar had 800,000 chances to choose mercy, she said quietly. 800,000 opportunities to be better than a monster. He chose to be what he is. Now we choose what we are. The countdown reached 0 across 40,000 worlds. The devices activated simultaneously. The biological weapon began. Its work, invisible and inevitable. The Zentari Empire, 3,000 years of galactic domination, began to die. Commander Vextar felt the first symptoms on the 3rd day after the human weapons deployed. A burning sensation in his chest, followed by weakness in his limbs. At first, he thought it might be stress from coordinating the Empire's response to the human attack. Then other Zentari began reporting the same symptoms. The Imperial medical staff worked frantically to identify the cause. Blood tests showed cellular breakdown happening faster than their advanced medicine could repair. The humans had designed their weapon perfectly. It accelerated the natural dying process that all Zentari lived with, turning their greatest weakness into an unstoppable death sentence. How long do we have? Vextar asked the chief medical officer. Without treatment, perhaps 5 days. With full medical support, maybe 10. But Commander, the treatment requires resources we no longer have access to. The weapon has contaminated our entire supply system. Vextar realized the full scope of what humanity had done. This was not just a biological attack. It was a complete severing of the systems that kept the Zentari Empire alive. Every world, every station, every ship had been infected simultaneously. There was nowhere to retreat, nowhere to find clean resources. On day 5, Vextar managed to send one final transmission to Earth. His once powerful voice was weak and broken as he appeared on screen, his skin already showing the gray pallor of approaching death. President Martinez of Earth, he began, struggling to speak. I am Commander Vextar. I led the educational program on New Eden. I am responsible for the deaths of your children. President Martinez sat in her office, watching. the transmission with no emotion on her face. Around her, military advisors and government officials waited to see how she would respond to what might be the last words of the Centauri Empire. "I come to you now to beg," Vextar continued. "Not for myself, but for the billions of Centauri who had no part in what happened on your world. Innocent civilians, children of our own species, scientists and artists who never harmed any human. Please show mercy. End this weapon. We will pay any price, accept any terms." Martinez listened without interruption as Vextar offered reparations. Territory, complete submission to human authority. He promised that the Centauri would become servants to humanity, that they would spend the rest of their existence making amends for New Eden. When the transmission ended, Martinez's advisors looked to her for guidance. General Thompson spoke first. "Madam President, we could stop the weapon. Our scientists believe they can create an antidote. We could save some of them, dictate terms, rule over what remains of their empire." Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Then she activated the communication system to send her reply directly to Commander Vextar. "Commander Vextar," she said, her voice calm and steady. "You speak of innocent Centauri who played no part in the New Eden massacre. You offer mercy for those who did not choose to murder children. I want you to remember this moment, because this is exactly what our parents said when they begged you to spare their children." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You had 800,000 chances to show mercy. Each child you killed was an opportunity to choose differently. Each parent who begged you to stop was offering you the chance to be better than what you chose to become. We are simply honoring your choice." The transmission ended. There would be no antidote, no mercy, no negotiation. By day 10, the Centauri Empire had effectively ceased to exist. Reports came in from across the galaxy as the last Centauri outpost went silent. 40,000 worlds that had been under Imperial control suddenly found themselves free. Space stations that had served as administrative centers became empty monuments to fallen power. The galaxy expected humanity to claim the territory, to become the new dominant species. Instead, President Martinez surprised everyone with her next announcement. "Citizens of the galaxy," she broadcast to every world and species, "the Centauri Empire is dissolved. All former Centauri worlds are hereby granted immediate independence. Humanity claims no territory, demands no tribute, seeks no dominion over other species. We have taken what was owed to us, and we are finished." Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral after the successful operation, found himself in command of the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Ships from every human colony had been modified to carry the biological weapon, creating a military force that could reach any point in the galaxy within days. "What are your orders, Admiral?" his communication officer asked as they completed their survey of former Centauri space. "We go home," Jake replied. "Our job here is done." But Jake knew that humanity's relationship with the galaxy had changed forever. As his fleet traveled back toward human space, they received thousands of messages from other species. Some offered alliance, others tribute. Many simply asked for reassurance that humanity had no plans for further conquest. Dr. Kate Williams worked to establish what she called the Memorial Protocol. At every former Centauri world, human teams erected monuments listing the names of the 800,000 children who had died on New Eden. Each monument contained the same message: here live those who reminded the galaxy that some things are sacred. Their memory ensures it remains so. The monuments were not claims of territory. They were warnings, simple reminders that humanity was watching, and that certain lines should never be crossed. Lieutenant Amy Chun, now promoted to communications, director for the Earth Defense Force, noticed an interesting pattern in the messages humanity received from across the galaxy. Species that had never contacted humans before were reaching out, asking about trade agreements, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation. "They're not afraid of us," she reported to Admiral Morrison. "They're impressed. They see us as a species that keeps its word, even when that word is a threat. They trust us because we did exactly what we said we would do." The Children's Starlight Network became a permanent memorial system, connecting human worlds with a communication grid that carried the voices of the dead. The recordings of the 800,000 children were integrated into the network, their laughter and songs becoming a constant reminder of what humanity had lost and what it had chosen to protect. President Martinez established the Terran Protection Protocols, a simple set of guidelines that humanity broadcast to the galaxy. Any species that harmed human children would face the same mathematical certainty that had ended the Centauri Empire. The protocols were not a declaration of war or a threat of conquest. They were a promise of consequences. Years passed, and the galaxy settled into what historians would later call the Long Peace. Without the Centauri Empire's constant warfare and oppression, dozens of species flourished. Trade routes opened between worlds that had been enemies for centuries. Scientific cooperation reached levels never seen before. Humanity returned to its quiet expansion and exploration, but now they did so with the galaxy's full respect. When human ships arrived at a new world, they were greeted not as invaders or conquerors, but as the species that had proven capable of absolute commitment to protecting what it loved most. Admiral Morrison, now an old man, often visited the memorial. On New Eden, the crystal spire erected by the Centauri still stood, but now it was surrounded by a garden where earth flowers grew in the glassed soil. Human families came from across the galaxy to read the names of the children and to remember, did we do the right thing? He asked Dr. Williams during one of these visits. Kate, also aged by the years, looked at the memorial garden where children from other species now played safely under human protection. "Jake, look around you. How many children are alive today because the galaxy learned that some things are sacred? How many species are free because we proved that actions have consequences?" As the sun set over New Eden, the children's voices could still be heard from the Starlight Network, singing the songs they had been performing when the Centauri silenced them forever. Their voices had become the galaxy's conscience, a permanent reminder that even the mightiest empires could fall if they forgot the difference between power and strength. The long peace continued, built on the foundation of 800,000 young lives and the species that had loved them enough to ensure their deaths meant something. In the end, humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had simply taught it to be better.